Okay, we are live now. So good evening, everyone. This is the health show. We are trying to talk about the concept of casual sex and the ways we can cover it. So we have with us Mr. Roberts and Dr. Macaulay. They should introduce themselves. Dr. Macaulay.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to be here. I'm Makodi Sagi. I'm an eye doctor, a writer, a speaker, and a creative. Nice to be here once again. Thank you, Dr. Ezekiel, for the opportunity. I do appreciate it.
All right. Mr. Ro- Robert.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Robert Abati. I'm a socioeconomic analyst and a stakeholder engagement tutor.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. So, straight to the topic. Dr. Macaulay, so what can you tell us? What can you tell us about the issue of casual sex?
Okay, well, casual sex is basically, in simple terms, is the sexual activities between people who are not established couples. And examples of such could be prostitution, one night stands, swinging, and casually having sex while in a relationship and all that. Yeah, those are examples of casual sex. Of recent, it was found out that 25% of Nigerian adolescents are sexually active. So that says a lot just on that age range already about casual sex. So basically, it's sex between two persons who are not in a committed relationship. Yeah,
Okay.
that's yeah.
Okay. Adolescents, 25% of adolescents are
In
sexually
Nigeria,
active.
Yes.
Wow. And I just checked adolescents from the age of 10 to 19.
Yes.
So how do you link these statistics with hello?
I'm listening. Yeah, clearly.
Okay. All right. How do you link these statistics with the recent happening? The recent story about the Chrisland school story about the. But you know
Yes.
about the news now. You know the
Yes.
Chrisland. So how do you link that? Do you think these adolescent age, who should be responsible for for the casual sex for this age? If you engage in casual sex, or me or Mr. Robert, we know who to hold
Yeah.
responsible, ourselves, definitely. But
Yes.
for children of this age, who do you think should be responsible? Who should be held responsible from age 10 to 18 or so?
Well, basically, it's a little bit complex, but majorly the person that should be held responsible are those who brought them into the world, the parents. In other sense, you could say the guardians. Yeah. Well, because there's a lot to be talked about when it comes to parenting, our ideology about sex education in this climate, and
Okay.
not just that, not just to that age bracket, also to adults generally. And you've been in the healthcare profession, you should know that, okay, a lot of persons do not really know much about sex. And I'll talk about sexual satisfaction even among couples. Now, that's just going further. Bringing it down to this age bracket, it talks about how it really shows that we are not really doing a good job so far when it comes to sexual education.
Okay.
Maybe from the church, the parents, the guardians, and all that. But in this case, that case is
Yeah.
majorly the parents. People are blaming the school. Of course, the school has its role, but it's minimal compared to that of the parents, or the guardians, as the case may be. We are not really uh, vulnerable as regards sexual or education. Not yet. We're not in that stage yet. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Quickly, you mentioned the church, you mentioned parents, you mentioned guardians. I had this discussion with my wife, sort of an argument,
Yeah.
especially particularly about the Chrisland school, and
Yeah.
she mentioned that the parents were to blame. I was against it because if you check the time the children spend with the teacher, it is more compared to
Mm-hmm.
the parents. The
Mm-hmm.
child wakes up 6 a.m. and then by
Mm-hmm.
8 a.m. is already in school, and he
Mm-hmm.
spends 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. in school. That is about eight
Mm-hmm.
hours out of 24 hours
Mm-hmm.
in school. So you see,
Mm-hmm.
the teacher has a lot of influence over the students than the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Habits the teacher will be able to identify and the parents would be able to identify except in
Yes.
holidays, or rather when they're
Yes.
on holidays. So
Yeah.
how do you relate that with this Chrisland school?
Well, I think you have a point, though. The blame is not just to the parent alone, of course. It also goes down to the teachers. But I also differ in the sense that when it comes to, like you rightly said, in terms of the time spent, of course, the teachers really have more of that time with them. So there's
Yeah,
certain things the parents may not be able to see that the teachers will be able to see, right, like you rightly said.
yeah,
But
yeah,
when it comes to the power of influence, the parents have a higher power of influence over them, however short the time may be. For that girl, you would tell that from what I read, it's not as though that was her first sexual experience. And I even
okay,
heard she even has pages on is it Likey on social media where she posts this suggestive sexually dance videos and all that, at that very
okay,
young age. So there's a poor case of supervision there. Parenting, yes, education. We have to educate our kids. We have to put them in educational environments like schools. But how well are we paying attention even in our busy schedules? Like we bring them into this earth, so it's our responsibility to be conscious, to be observant about certain things, because if we just give birth to them and put them, okay, teachers, do your job alone, then there's a problem. So I think the parents has their role, which is, in my opinion, much. The teacher also, they have their role, but really, there's nothing like when you are the one who gave birth to a particular child, or you are the one paying the school fees. You
yeah,
understand what I'm trying to say? Yes. So it's
yeah,
it's more. So that responsibility, it hinge more on the parents. So I think it's a poor case of supervision, and of course the teachers, of course, and the parents, because but majorly on the parents. Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Robert, you heard Dr. Macaulay speak. I don't know, how would you share the blame? 50-50 or 60-40? Or let's hear your opinion.
Thank you, Dr. Ezekiel. I will always coming from sociological perspective.
Okay.
Although on the base view of it, you say, okay, it could be the school, it could be the parents, but then saying it's the parents' fault is somewhat um, undermining other variables that influences child development,
Mm,
especially in the world we are today. Now,
mm,
previously, the parents have more influence on the
mm,
child than any other variable. But as the
mhm,
world has become more developed, we have less time with our children, communities have become broader. You agree with me that some decades ago, the development of a child is dependent on his own immediate environment, including
Yeah.
his neighbors. But that is not the case anymore because everybody is busy. And now that responsibility has been shifted from the parents to the school. And it's a cautious move. That's why I see some parents are ready to part with thousands and hundreds of thousands of naira just to get that proper education, which is beyond academic, but also behavioral development. Now, in the world we live today, that influence, the highest influence, because Dr. Macaulay mentioned how the parent has a higher influence than the school and the teachers, which is true. But then there's a new variable that supersedes both, which is your peers. Now, it is no longer a cultural thing. With your phone, you could become friends with anybody anywhere. You could get that alien culture into your own subsystem. And all these interplay to, like he mentioned, Likey, for instance. She's getting all sorts of adulations from people on Likey, which is why she continues what she does. If she does that normally in an African setting, she will get flogged. But because of what the internet has brought to us, this global village we are in now, your primary influence as a young child with a phone that is connected to the internet is the internet and your peers on the internet.
Oh, okay. So I guess you're done with your points, Mr. Robert.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you are bringing a new variable, so you're not just putting the blame around the parents or the teachers. You're saying there is a third variable, that's the peers of the
Yes,
child.
yeah.
Okay. Now, Mr. Macaulay, you mentioned something that
yeah.
um, casual sex is not just relatable to adolescents, even adults. So what's
Yes.
your comment about how do you want to buttress that point?
Well, casual sex, well, certain things when you're talking about casual sex, you can't necessarily bring the moral argument into it because everybody has their belief system. You get,
Yeah,
but I think when it comes to casual sex, what has to be said is protection. Yeah, practicing safe sex, whether
yeah,
it's casual or not, especially above the age group we just talked about. I'm
okay,
not talking about above the age group. Even when it comes to that age group, adolescent age group, the conversations about family planning is coming to the question right now because once someone is sexually active, you cannot just say it should automatically stop. It doesn't really work that way. So bringing family planning in quote into the discussion, it's now liable. It's a viable. I mean to say it's viable. Like it's possible to bring that into the conversation. Family planning because um, some of these adolescents cannot even afford to purchase protection, condoms, or post pill after sex. Apart from that, the stigma, like how do I go to the pharmacist? How do I go to the how do I
yeah,
go to do all that you get? So it is complex, but I think that conversations has to be held, like serious conversations. There are a lot of things we are shying away from in this climb. Actually, we need to really talk because if for instance we Nigerians were naturally open concerning conversations about sex, even though you have an adolescent who is misbehaving in that direction, he or she may be able to confide in you concerning something, yeah, because there's a
yeah,
conversation about it even in church, even in school, at home, everywhere among peers, like Mr. Robert said, there will be that level of vulnerability. But right now, they just want to tackle all these things themselves. As in, you be in the same home, you have a sibling who has already done like 3 abortions, you have no idea. You have no idea. Like you have no idea. It's happening. So I think conversations around it, we may not necessarily begin on the moral ground, just basically on safety first. Safety.
okay, okay.
Yes.
Let me ask you directly. Now, which
Yes.
of these
Yes.
institutions do you think is better for these conversations to be held in the church or the home? Or or the school, the church, the home, or the school? Which institution do you think can better pass this information across to the student
I think
to
it's
this age
all
group?
because I think all the institutions have equal in terms of this now. I think all the institutions
Okay.
have equal role to play because if the schools are talking about it, the parents cannot really do anything. Like, wow, the schools are talking about it, they are more educated in quotes. They have this respect for schools. You get, yeah. And of course, the church, the religious institution, the mosque. Like, let's have these conversations about safe sex, without necessarily tagging it, talking about sex itself. Because right now, I think the parents and the schools having a second thought about it, they have a higher role to play in this because in the church now, they want to bring a moral ground into it. And oftentimes, when they are bringing a moral ground into it, it's usually from the perspective of hell, internal damnation. Meanwhile, these kids, they want vulnerability. They want to be able to relate to what's happening. They want you to come down to their level and talk about the situation the way they is, the way they are, so they can really be vulnerable to you to talk about their challenges we get. So I
Oh,
think the schools and the parents, yeah.
okay. Okay. So,
Mm.
Mr. Robert, I don't know. You have any questions for Dr. Macaulay regarding that?
Okay, before my questions, I'll just make a little preamble. So there was this sociological research done by Scott South. He's a professor in sociology. He carried out a research to show the difference in casual sex from 2007 to 2017. This was published on March 1st last year. So there's actually been a decline in women in 2007. 31% engaged in casual sex, but at the time of research in 2017, it had dropped to 22%. Then in
Wow.
men in 2007, it was at 38%, but in 2017, it dropped to 24%. This is in the US. So
Okay.
during this research, they found out they included different variables, right, to determine what influences it positively or negatively. And
Okay.
they found that women staying with their parents have lesser numbers than women staying independently.
Alone. Okay.
Yes. So another variable that increased the propensity of casual sex is the use of the internet, and alcohol was the number one variable in this research. So women who consume alcohol have 7 times more propensity to engage and have engaged in casual sex than women who don't take alcohol. So that is for
Okay.
the women. And in men, it's basically the same thing. Alcohol is responsible for 33% of the research when it comes to influence.
Okay, we lost Mr. Robert there. I really hope he gets his connection back real soon.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Um,
network.
my question. Hello, can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. In light of this data, what can we really say is the right way to go about mitigating the negative effects? First, because if we talk about STIs, unwanted pregnancies, those will not even be a thing if casual sex did not occur in the first place,
Yes,
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes,
I'm not talking about mitigating through these ways, which is just the effect, but I'm talking about the cause itself. How do we mitigate the high levels of casual sex, and what do you think is the nucleus of the problem?
So, Dr. Macaulay, over to you. You can respond.
yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, these statistics are actually very shocking, but I would like to really know that of our client to see if it's actually um
Similar.
yes, if it's similar or not.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
so from observation, of course, observation is not statistics. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's any similitude between both statistics, if there is any here so far. But I'd really be interested in knowing that of the Nigerian client, judging by what's happening now and so far. But the internet really does two things. For the adolescent, I think it does the opposite. For the adult, I think it does. It may be doing similar thing. It may actually be mitigating, right, reducing the number of casual sex cases and all that. But in terms of the adolescent, I think it's contrary. Now we have um, um, accessibility to the internet. The kids can actually have any information. You've seen how babies handle phone, Dr. Ezekiel.
Yeah.
Like it's shocking. At the age of
Yeah.
3, it's amazing. I don't know. Maybe if I would have handled devices like that, such if they know the app to go to,
Yeah. That's
so
true.
they know the apps to go to. So they're exposed to these things and all that. So I think if I was to um, analyze the whole thing for the adolescent, is doing the opposite because they have more access to information now. The only problem is how to process this information. They have information, they may be processing it wrongly, but actually engaging in these things. Oh, there's porn, there's gay sex. Like secondary schools, you hear a lot of cases of boys having sex with boys, and in terms of um, statistics concerning STIs. A lot of STIs are gotten through anal sex. And that's just a conversation for another day anyway. But the nucleus of the problem would be in this climb. Well, I think, like I said, the conversation, we are not having enough conversation as regards sex in general. We're not having enough conversation as regards sex. In church, for instance, talking about sex, everybody is shy. And this is the same sex we're having. Nigerian population is going to probably 200 right now. So we are heading to 200 million. In Abuja, for instance, if you go to the marketplace, you see this house family, they're selling this sex enhancement drugs and all that. It's happening. We're having a lot of sex. But how are we having this sex? Is it safe? Are we having this conversation? Are we honest about it? I think that is the nucleus of the problem in this climb. We are not having the conversation as regards sex. And if you're bringing it down to marriage, for instance, let's take away casual sex, for instance. Talk about the number of women that really get satisfied in sex. Talk about men that really know how to please their women, or women that know how to please their men. Talk about how many women have experienced orgasm. The conversation, they're bringing it back to casual sex. The conversation I think for adults, like Robert rightly said, I think in this climate, people are more informed. So people are being careful as regards certain actions they take. People know, okay, yes, they should take post pill. People know what to do. Okay, browse. Of course, Google is not dependable when it comes to, in quotes, health information. For to an extent, they get educated concerning certain things. But for the adolescents, it's contrary. So I think we should be having enough conversation. It shouldn't be in secret. Yes, as regard, I think that is one of the major nucleus of the problem.
Adding to your point, you understand, most of these adolescents, especially from the age 10 to 19, they try out this thing based on their inquisitiveness. You understand? They just hear what their friends tell them. They want to try it out. They want to see how it feels. You understand? So I think basically, I think maybe 50% of this age, this is how they get used to the stuff. You understand?
Yes. Their peers.
Their peers.
Yeah.
And judging from the fact from the conversation I have with a few of these secondary school students, although that was regarding smoking Indian hemp, the boy actually said he wanted to see how it would be like when he feels high. Like he wants to know how feeling high would be like. That's why he tried it. You understand? So he didn't just try it because he likes to smoke. He wants to just know. He was inquisitive, and then he got hooked on it. So I think that will be almost the same thing for sex. I don't know if Mr. Robert disagrees with that also. Mr. Robert.
Yeah, I do not. I've met people who absolutely hate the taste of alcohol, hate it how it makes them feel. But when they go out with their peers, they take it regardless. So that's why I said, like, yes, the peers. I know someone that every time they take alcohol, they vomit, but they still take it anyway. So like the peer influence, I don't even want to call it peer pressure because it's just influence, is by far. But then the problem is everyone comes from a different environment and is sub climb, because even though you have parental upbringing in quote unquote the way of the Lord, but then you are going to go to other circles aside the family. You go to school, for instance, you meet different people. There are certain standards. Now, okay, this word vibe and forgotten the other word that's trends now. Exactly, yeah, cruise. Yes, exactly. So there are a lot of irresponsible things that logically you say that okay, I will not do this thing, but they just use the umbrella word cruise, and you have many people who just have to do it to look cool, for instance. So these things, like the variables that have been stated here, alcohol, for instance, is something that it's a stupefier if taken in excess, right? You will not make smart decisions like you would if you were not drunk, for instance. But then it's something that looks cool and is seen as being cool. And once people have alcohol in their system, they make less intelligent decisions. This is just what it is.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. I think we have talked about that issue very well. We'll move on to the next subtopic. What to do after sex? What do you think is the right thing to do after sex? The first thing most persons do is they just keep it to themselves. They just do look for some self help on how to come out of the whole sex stuff. I don't know for our viewers and for our listeners. I don't know if Dr. Macaulay, you have some maybe to-do list, something spelled out for persons to do, especially if they engage in unprotected sex.
First thing to do for unprotected sex, casual sex, for instance, get tested. Get tested. Get tested. That's the first thing. Get tested. Get tested. It cannot be overemphasized. There's a lot of things you would save yourself from when you get tested, and you begin immediate treatment in case there's any infection or possibility of having any infection. One thing about STIs is that they are not manifested. You don't see the symptoms. You don't have the symptoms for most of them. That's why they're infections. You could have it in your system, and over time they become STDs. they get manifested. Most STDs were once STIs. So get tested is the first thing. For an adolescent, yeah, having someone you can talk to. It could be if there's a doctor in your church, or a teacher in your school you could talk to, someone you can confide in, someone you've talked to about other stuff and they were not judgmental. You could tell them about it. Someone you know that won't, of course, they will rebuke you,
Dr.
but
Macaulay, Dr.
yeah,
Macaulay, you want to put these teenagers in trouble. What if they speak to them and they go ahead to tell their parents? Like the
that
way like the way you are. If a teenager comes up to you and tells
yes,
you any his or her sexual experience, and you are
yes.
friends to the father or to the mother, how sure are you that you're not going to share that information with the parents?
Well, now this is a very important question. This is a very important question. It's easy to say that I would not tell the parents, but one should be grown enough to know the psychology of teenagers. If the moment you lose that trust, that is the end for life. And
Wow.
you've ruined a lot of things. You have ruined a lot of things. Teenagers should be handled with care because they're usually hysterical. That's not the word I'm trying to use. They are volatile. You should handle them with care. They need someone to trust. They really need someone they can talk to. At that age, they often think they know what's best for them. I know what to do. You have siblings now, you know how. So
Yeah,
if
that's true.
they, yeah, once you can win their trust, and whatever it takes, you should actually. If there's a reason they're not telling their parents in the first place, there's a reason they're not telling their
Yeah.
parents. Yeah, so maybe you, after knowing, okay, this is the situation on ground, this is okay, you've had sex, okay, what should we do about it? Let's get tested and all that. Then you cannot proceed into the conversation about letting their parents know. That's another conversation entirely. But at first, winning their trust is very important so that you can have other information as regards other things, drugs. You know the level of drugs intakes in Nigeria. Like drug abuse is high. Drug
Yeah,
abuse
yeah,
is
very
high. Drug abuse is high right now. People do it as a result of peer influence, escapism. Economic situation is terrible. People just want to poor parental whatever. People are just giving back. No parental, no family planning. So there are a lot of issues on ground apart from casual sex. So you really need to win their trust. You really need
yes.
to. So yeah, therefore as an adult, get tested. First thing, get tested. Then over time, get educated. Get educated concerning sex and how to go about protecting yourself subsequently.
All right. So get tested, get educated. Mr. Robert, I don't know if you have any input concerning that.
Yeah, I have an input concerning the question, the follow-up question you raised, which is very
Okay.
important because
Okay.
the truth of the matter is, I don't know about other countries or continents, but here in Nigeria, sex is a taboo. It's a taboo. Even
That's true.
among
That's true.
even
Yes.
amongst people that are married, a wife cannot go and tell another person. It's somehow that is, and we are religious people, and that is like a religious institution already saying,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this will have go ahead, right? But still,
Yeah.
the discussions are not had. So the first thing an adolescent will think is, if I tell anybody this, first of all, I'm going to be judged, then I will be punished, which is something that we've seen happen a lot of
Yeah.
times.
That's
So that is going to conflict them, which I don't have like a solution to the problem, but I'm just saying that it's going to be very difficult for an adolescent to tell someone close to them that, okay, I had unprotected sex, and it's going to be a very serious problem, as you
I am
stated.
pregnant.
Yes. So now the thing is morality, that word itself, that is a very big problem in this whole discussion because our morality in Nigeria here is heavily influenced by religion. But then, religion, when it comes to casual sex, it's a no-go area at all. Because Dr. Macaulay have mentioned that he's not saying it's bad in itself, but the way to go about it, if you are not practicing it healthily, because he didn't
yeah.
say outrightly that it's bad, which is also how I feel. Because then people can do what they want, but once what you are doing is going to affect other people, then it's a problem. Now, in religion itself, I'm not going to name call any religion or throw any religion under the bus, but we are talking about adolescents being sexually active. Dr. Macaulay said 25%, which you were shocked about. But
Yeah,
then there are some religions where marriage in itself can begin immediately the girl starts experiencing menstruation. And
yeah,
you know, as a healthcare practitioner, that that could be very early.
yeah.
So you see, there's a paradox in it all. So if we are to take out religion from this discussion, it can become less complicated, but that is impossible to do in our society, which is the problem with discussing with people also.
That's true. That's true. Anyway, before we move away from that topic, I want to ask Mr. Rabba, I want to put a question straight to you. How do you think it's possible? How do you think it's possible to win the trust of children, especially the age of 10 to 19? How do you think we can
Oh,
win their trust or something?
okay. Um, Children would
Sorry,
naturally
before you respond,
yeah,
if you're
yeah.
watching and you have any question for any of the speakers, you can kindly type it in the comment section, so we'll read them out for you to for them to respond. So thank you very much. Continue, Mr. Robert.
Yeah, all right. Children will naturally gravitate towards empathy. That is how their mind works. Even as adults, that is how our mind works. So I know there are people who feel spare the rod and spoil the child, like they want to treat their children like soldiers and all that.
Yeah,
It has an adverse effect on the long run. Yes, they will conform to whatever you are saying when you are there, but there's no assurances that they will do the same in your absence. And when they are conflicted with issues, they will not come to you. That's just how it is. So the parents have to be more open with them, have to be more empathic with them, have to let them know that you can tell me anything. And if you make mistakes, I'm here to correct you, not just to punish you. This can be seen from little things that they do. You understand? When they commit little crimes, the way you handle it, are you just going to shout and beat them? Or are you going to make them understand why it's wrong, the consequences for it? So there needs to be more conversation, because one thing I've noticed is we as adults, we tend to underrate the capabilities of children. So in fact, you see people talking to children with this gibberish a lot, even when they are pretty too old for it. So they are very observant people. They are very
yeah.
observant people. Your body language speaks way more than what you say to them. So it is important as parents to have that conversation with them when they make little mistakes, to gain their trust for when they make bigger mistakes.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Macaulay. You have any comments for the?
Yes, well, I totally agree with Mr. Roberts. Children, they respond to empathy. Yeah. So the only place I'm coming in is the discipline. Of course, there should be discipline, but a lot of parents do not know the difference between discipline and abuse. So there's a place for rod, of course, but I think parents should understand where to draw the line. The transfer of
Okay,
aggression, and you're beating, transfer your aggression. The bill has the bills have not been paid. You're stressed from
Oh,
work.
boy.
You're transferring the aggression on the kids. That's not discipline anymore. That's abuse. So you have to know where
yeah,
to draw the line. It's very, very important because they sense these things. A child, you could flog a child and they know it's out of love. Really. They know because
yeah,
you appraise them when they do the right thing. You appraise them. Ah, you did well. Yeah, take this thing. So appraise them as much as you correct them. So they know love. They know love. And they'll come back to you. And they don't keep grudges. Most of them at that age. It's over time when they start sensing it's abuse, not discipline. You start having grudge. There are persons who are still having grudge against their parents because they felt they were abused at a very young age. That's not discipline. So drawing the line is very necessary. Well, I agree with everything he said. They are very observant. They see more. They learn from what you do more than from what you say. They learn from what you do more than what they are very, very observant. And parents should learn to treat their children with respect. They are humans. As long as they are humans, they deserve, there's a level of respect you should accord to your kids. And they know. Teach them. And once you do these things, it shows with how they relate with their peers.
Yeah.
Because you accord a certain level of respect. If you treat them as nonsense, you are nobody. Nobody. Comparisons and the rest of them, it shows in how they relate with their peers. So these things matter. Yeah. So once you are, like you said, like Mr. Robert said, you're open to them, you converse with them, you win their trust over time in little things, you appraise them in little things, you correct them in little things, they observe these things, they will tell you stuff. The girls will tell you stuff. Hey, Daddy, there's this guy toasting me in school today. Oh. Daddy, there's this guy toasting me in school today. So over time, they can tell you more stuff, because parenting is Will Smith said parenting is the art of holding on and letting go. Simultaneously, that balance, if you miss it in either part of the scale, you get this wrong totally. If you hold on, it means you are too protective. The moment they sense freedom, they will do everything that you have told them over the years not to do. At the moment you let them go without holding on, too much of it, that's terrible. So it's the balance between holding on and letting go, engaging them at the same time, allowing them having their individuality. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I really like the way the context which you brought it in, the act of holding on and letting go. I really hope those of us here and our listeners really learn how to be a better parent and know how to solve this little difficulty that we are trying to find a solution for. We're coming almost to the end of this live session. I don't know if our speakers will give us their concluding remark before we call it a day today. We'll begin from Dr. Macaulay. You can just give us a few closing remarks.
Okay. I there's hope. Yes, there's hope as regards this topic. A lot of hope, and Nigerians are actually very intelligent people, very intelligent people. So there is a lot of hope. We just need to have more conversation. We need to be more open. The stigma now, shame has its psychological place or sociological place in human development and advancement of a society. I'm not all against shame. I'm talking about unnecessary shame. You know, even because of shame, for the wear pants work out for road now. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. So there's a positive aspect of shame. It's important. You know, a lot of activists will say, shame. No. I love balance. You don't have to go to the other extreme to counter an extreme. That's the error we make. You don't have to do that. You're no different from the extreme you're trying to counter. When you go to the other end of the pole to counter one end of the pole. No. Shame has its sociological place in the development of society and its the cycle development of a human. But we should also ensure that we should remove unnecessary shame from this conversation. Take it away. So we're talking about sex. No feel satisfied. You know, there's this why a lot of women cannot talk about sex. They cannot teach their children sex education. If man touch you, get belly. If blah blah blah, you know, it's really wrong.
No, Dr. Macaulay, this was how we survived. Our female friends survived. You know, this was how you survived. So I'm sure you grew up in a Christian home, right? You survived. Yes. I think you must have enjoyed that doctrine for a very long time. You understand?
I was lucky. I would say I was lucky because now there are guys. Now I'm not making an excuse for rapists. Now this is very important. I like to come from all angles here. For example, you know X-Men, you've seen the movie X-Men. You know X-Men without Professor and Xavier, they're all dangerous because you have power without control.
Yeah.
So and Xavier ensures he educates them on how to utilize their power. So you have a guy with sexual urge. There's no education whatsoever. It's like a brute from a broken home, and the next thing, he unravish this thing on an innocent girl. It could be the other way around, of course, because anybody can be a victim of rape, you get. So we should have more conversations, really. We should have more conversations, more honest conversations without this stigma on it. When we begin to have these conversations, we really begin to see a lot of change. People will open up about a lot of things because we are doing stuff back in the background, though. We are having a lot of sex. a lot of casual sex, a lot of casual sex, all age groups. But we need to get it right, do it right and properly.
Okay. Um, 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 Mr. Robert, I don't know if you can give us a concluding remark, and please throw a small comment around the topic of rape relating to what we just discussed so far.
Oh, okay. Dr. Macaulay have said almost everything. So um, it is important for us to understand that in spite of our religiosity, morality has not improved. So Nigeria in the 1950s had more principled people than now. We can see it. We can see it in our everyday lives. Most of the most of us are cutthroats trying to take advantage of the next person. But then there has been an increase in religiosity, right? So we need to
Yeah.
understand that what we want to be, which is the religious and the moral thing, is different from who we are. Human beings are sexual creatures, amongst other things. It is something that is there. Once we admit that, then we can move forward to say, okay, what is the best and safest way to go about this? Instead of demonizing the whole concept of sex itself. So it still goes back to first accepting it and then having conversations around it. Now, for the issue of raping itself, I did this project with UN in Kano based on data we got from rape cases from the police in Kano State. And it was depressing. I was not myself for months. Statistics shows that most of the people who reported those cases, right? Most of those women,
Yeah.
two things happen. It's either they are dejected by society or they marry the rapist. I kid you not.
Yeah.
They get married to the people that rapes them just because
Wow.
the family wants to save face. Once the girl gets pregnant, they marry her off to that person that raped her. So imagine the trauma of having to live in the same house with the person that rapes you. And this is the same attitude that we see in all regions in Nigeria, even though, yes, the marriage thing is not going to be there, but there's always that stigmatization of what did you tell this person? What did you wear? You understand? So
Yeah.
when it eventually happens, the victim is scared to speak out because of the stigmatization, despite being the victim. So we need to also destigmatize the victim. It will go a very long way in these rape cases because there are people who do it because they are confident that that victim is not going to speak up. So that's my take.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Robert. Thank you very much, Dr. Macaulay. We learned a few things today. I think one of that is we need to generate or we need to have more conversations around sex. We need to stop hiding behind the curtain because almost everyone has sex and then nobody talks about it. Then after sex or after unsafe sex, we're told that we need to go for a test, get a test, then speak up and um, get help. There's one other thing I want to highlight. When you have sex with someone who you do not know the HIV status of, you are at risk of having HIV, which can eventually lead to AIDS. So it is proper and it is wise for you to use protection, for you to protect yourself, and for you to know the HIV and infection status of whatever person you are having sex with. So casual sex should not be something we have to deal with because it comes with a lot of disadvantage and consequences in the long run. So that for today's show. We really appreciate our listeners. We appreciate our speakers. We'll be here same time next week to talk about something much more interesting. Really hope our speakers are available for next Sunday sessions. Thank you very much, and we'll call it a day. Bye bye.